Hello, Rich. Welcome back.
Well, welcome back to you. Good to see you. You're looking well.
Yeah, I was just listening to Tullio. I know Tullio. I presented a day with him here on the Isle of Wight a few years ago. And, you know, the whole basis of what he's saying is really simple. That is that cancer is a fungus and sodium bicarbonate kills fungus. It's as simple as that. And, you know, when we're talking about a conspiracy to suppress cures that aren't produced by Big Pharma, it doesn't mean that every doctor is in on it. All you need is doctors to be one of two things, or usually both, which is ignorant of anything outside of what's been taught to them at the medical schools and by the pharmaceutical reps, and secondly, in fear of stepping out of line. And this is how they've done it, Rich. The Rockefellers, in the early part of the 20th century, or the latter part of the 19th, when they were starting to bring in big pharma medicine, they introduced, this is such a scam, and it's played out right across society. The scam is licensing. What they do is they say, right, to do A, B, and C, in this case, be a doctor, you need a license. You cannot do it without a license. Now, if you're going to get the license, you have to do it the way we say. And that's how they keep alternative ways of treating people out of mainstream use and even mainstream knowledge, and how they stop doctors going in another direction. Because let's look at this just very quickly. We are now in the 21st century. You look at all the technological developments and all that, and still today, the only response to cancer is either radiation, which causes cancer, acknowledged, or chemotherapy, which, as one doctor recently said, it's like giving someone weed killer and expecting them to recover. And what chemotherapy does is destroy the immune system, the cells of the immune system. So even if the initial cancer is suppressed, the immune system's not there as protection any longer for the rest of your life, with often devastating effects in terms of cancer returning. So it's the Stone Age. And if you look, Rich, through the history of Big Pharma, what you'll find is anyone that made breakthroughs that were outside of the Big Pharma arena, they were targeted, destroyed, either ended up in jail, and attacked and abused like
look what happened to Wilhelm Reich and the orgone generator and that story that we told early in the spring here on TPV. I got to just mention finally, and I'm not being silly about this, but just that Cancer Research UK, whom we got a quote from, just on that, they're saying, no, we're not having any of it. And I definitely want to get Simoncini on the programme sometime with some of these people. I'd love a bit of that.
Absolutely, Rich. Debate with him.
That's
you know,
right.
the cancer is an industry. It's an industry with fantastic income. And when you look at the staggering amount of money that has been given by the public and thrown at the so-called finding a cure for cancer, and we're no nearer getting to the heart of it now in Big Pharma terms, that is ridiculous. It's an inversion of what should have happened, and it's being suppressed. One of the most corrupt industries on earth is the cancer industry, and that is an expression of another one of the greatest corrupt and appalling organizations on earth.
I'll tell you one thing, David.
That is the mainstream medical system in general.
I'll tell you one thing. I do agree that the likes of Simoncini and Brzezinski in America, Stanislav Brzezinski, I think the guy's name is, anti-neoplastons and all that, they at least deserve their theories to be looked at through a series of clinical trials. I totally agree with that. You are going to be in Wembley in London very, very, very soon for the second time. And whenever I meet people and I tell them about you and the People's Voice, and they've always heard of you, and I say, he's going to be in London in October. And oh yeah, I've seen some of it on YouTube. People can never get over what a massive presentation it is. 10 hours, mate. 10 hours. It's extraordinary. How does anybody do that?
Well, actually doing it's quite easy. I mean, the research leading up to it for months is what takes the time, and that's what I'm doing every day now. But people would be who don't know me would be taken aback. 10 hours? What are you talking about? What are you going to say? But what I do is I start at A and I finish at Z. It's a massive, massive work of dot connecting across the nature of reality as it really is, as opposed to what we told it is. And to understand that is vital to understanding how the conspiracy and the manipulation of humanity works. And then there's the deep, deep, deep levels of the rabbit hole, beyond where almost any other conspiracy researcher wants to go. Because, I've had as much abuse and ridicule from people in the alternative arena, shall we say, as I have from the mainstream, because my motivation is to follow the information, not to censor the information and where it takes me because of preconceived ideas and beliefs. And then what I do in the third section is I take all that information up to that point, and then I apply it to what's happening today. And suddenly, the world takes on a completely different panorama. Suddenly, people can see how all these apparently disparate and unconnected areas of society, everything from chemtrails to food additives to the banking scams to the political scams to 9/11 to the transhumanist agenda, they all suddenly, at that point in the presentation, they all come together and become crystal clear about how they fit and where we're going. But, one of the most important parts of the day is the final section when we go into a celebration of life, really, because we need to know what's going on in the world if we're going to stop it. But we also need to remember, on many, many levels, remember that we are not our body and our life story, and we're not our race and our culture. These are just experiences. What we are is infinite awareness having those experiences. And it's a celebration of the eternity and the infinity of life. And all this world is that we're experiencing now, names like David Icke and Richie Allen, they're just points of attention for a short period. They're not who we are, they're what we're experiencing.
So all that comes David.
Together. There's lots of music and lots of dance, and it's a ball.
I can't wait to see it. People can go to davidicke.com for tickets. It's on October the 25th. Got to ask you today about Bilderberg. We spoke to Alex Jones at the top of the programme. Bilderberg is in Copenhagen. I'm reckoning, David, this is probably the first Bilderberg meeting. Well, it's one of a few that you've missed in recent years. You're generally there, aren't you, rallying the troops and asking the questions. So it's in Copenhagen. People are waking up to this, aren't they?
Well, they are, Rich. But I would say this about Bilderberg. I've been exposing it now since the early 90s, and I'll go on exposing it. It's on my website today. But we shouldn't get too focused on Bilderberg in and of itself, because it's not the web, it's a strand in the web. And I wouldn't for a minute go as far as to say that Bilderberg is a sideshow, but what I will say is that compared with what is happening deeper, deeper, deeper in the rabbit hole, it is a vehicle to take decisions made in the hidden, deep in the rabbit hole, deep in the shadows. And there's a point where the hidden meets the seen, i.e. the world that we know about, governments, government agencies, banks. And at that cusp where the hidden meets the seen is the Bilderberg Group and organizations like it. And their job is to take decisions made in the hidden, in the shadows, by people that no one would ever have heard of, and bring that through into changes in legislation and changes in society that bring the hidden agenda into the world that we experience. This is how it works. Bilderberg is not an organization so much where decisions are made as where participants are in effect told about decisions that have been made in the hidden, and their role is to play them out in the scene in their country and their area of influence through changes in legislation. The most significant person at Bilderberg and it is significant, is Eric Schmidt, the executive chairman of Google. Google is an extremely sinister organization that is driving the transhumanist agenda, which is about using technology and machines and microchips and all the rest of it to further impact upon the perceptions of humanity. And things like Google Glass,
Yeah, I was going to
where
mention
they've
that.
got these glasses and they can go on the very internet with the glasses. That's part of the process of getting people to become comfortable in interacting with machinery actually on their head, because they want the machinery inside the body. I mean, some of them openly talk about it. So you've got this Google X, this what's described as a semi-secret laboratory, where a lot of this stuff is developed. And what Schmidt is there for, and of course was last year at Watford, just north of London, he's there to sell and push this transhumanist agenda through the various areas of politics and banking and business and all these other various areas of participation at Bilderberg. That is the most significant thing for me, Eric Schmidt and Google. Google is not a benign organization. It is a very sinister organization pushing a very sinister agenda for humanity.
It looks like, David, in the last couple of weeks, I say it looks like carefully, that there's been some sort of pushback by the American authorities, the American government, Congress and the Senate, against spying, not only by the NSA, but by companies like Google and Facebook. What do we make of that?
Well, it's a technique that you can see with UKIP after their success. For people around the world, UKIP is a party that's emerging, opposing the European Union and its centralization of bureaucratic power. And it's done very well. So what they say then is we're having a meeting to discuss the fact that so many people have opposed European Union and its centralization and all that stuff. And we're going to have a meeting to discuss the implications and the fact we must start listening to people. No, they're not. They're having a meeting to respond to public opinion in a way that they can crack on regardless with their agenda, but present it in a slightly different way so that people don't see it as so blatantly, tyrannical and centralizing in terms of its power structure. So when you've kind of been exposed as the NSA has in America for this mass spying, and of course, don't tell me that people in government didn't know it was going on. Lower down people maybe, but the top people and the insiders all knew it was going on. And so what you do is you play public opinion and you respond as if you want to do something about it. But what is going on? Well, that's happening exactly the same situation that the NSA has been exposed for is continuing. That they have no way that they're going to stop doing that because it's the agenda that they do it, and so it's all window dressing and it's all for public consumption. And another thing about the revelations about the NSA, on one level, it's actually a good thing for the agenda from a psychological point of view, because what it's saying to people is, you can't do anything that we don't know about. And that's going to get people more and more wary of speaking out and going here and expressing this, thinking that, well, whatever I do, whatever I say on the internet, it's going to be recorded. If it's on the phone, it's going to know about it. So there are psychologically positive implications for this great revelation about the NSA. But even the great revelations are tip of the iceberg stuff in terms of what they're actually doing.
But you know something, David? I get annoyed, not with you, but with people who complain about the spying, because I've said this to you 100 times before, you've said it as well. The amount of information that people volunteer about themselves, that you just give away on Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that. So there's always a bit of that in it as well. I want to ask you something. We're I think, of the Voltaire approach to free speech. We'll defend people's rights to say whatever, to say something. We might not agree with you, but we'll defend your right to say it. That's the Voltaire thing, paraphrased. What about current football player for our American friend, soccer player Joey Barton, being invited onto the BBC's Question Time program last night, and we were very interested in reading that a lot of our viewers were really annoyed by it because they were saying that by the BBC bringing on a footballer, a former convicted thug, I suppose that's what you could call him, in Joey Barton onto their programme, what they were doing was deliberately trivialising these important issues that they were discussing on their programme last night. What do you make of that?
Well, the programme's called Question Time.
Question Time, yeah.
Sponsored up by a guy called David Dimbleby, who was actually at the BBC when I was, and he was getting on then, so he's been around a long time. I can't watch Question Time because I don't want to keep buying television screens. It's just an appalling program. It's classically encapsulating the irrelevance of politics and the irrelevance of the media, because you've got usually a representative from each party or most parties, and they give the party line and they give the party line, talking vacuous bloody nonsense. Then you'll have another person on giving their opinion about something they haven't researched and know nothing about. And of course, there was a campaign a little while ago to try to get me on there. But I mean, I'm their worst nightmare because, of course, I'll be giving a different view and a different fix on every subject that comes up. They don't want that. They want the consensus. They want the postage stamp. So somebody like Joey Barton, who, whatever his background, deserves the platform, to have his say as well. He has a right to his opinion, whether you agree with it or not. It's called freedom. But he's not a problem to the postage stamp because he's not researched in these areas, and he will be within the parameters that Question Time keeps everything into. And so it's an irrelevant program, just like most of the mainstream media, because it's not interested. And funnily enough, we're coming round in a circle here, Rich, because the media polices information in exactly the same way as the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry and the cancer industry polices information. Why? Because they're different aspects of the same net, the same web, the same global agenda.
Now, I can agree with most of that, but I'm going to disagree with you regarding them bringing on people like Barton, because I think, let's suppose that Question Time was a genuine programme. Let's suppose that it was a programme that really was out to seek the truth and really was out to challenge the establishment. A guy like Joey Barton, I mean, I watched it last night. It was car crash television. It was painfully obvious that the guy's grasp of geopolitical affairs, current affairs in general, was absolutely abysmal, David. I just thought it was terrible, personally.
But like I say, Rich, that's a good thing from the Question Time's point of view, the BBC's point of view, and that which controls the BBC, because it's not going to go out of the box. It's not going to go out of the bubble. It's just going to stay on the, keep you changing analogies, but it's still standing on the postage stamp. The reason they won't have me on is because, I won't have that. And I will challenge and question all their assumptions across the great spectrum of human society, because we need to, because, when you research this and you research it with an open mind and you research it without self-censorship, you let the information be your guide. And this is why, again, coming back to what we said earlier, this is why I talk for so long when I do a presentation like Wembley Arena. When you do that, you realize that it's not just here and there that we have been sold a lie. Not just in medicine, not just in banking, not just in politics. Almost everything we've ever been told since we arrived in this sliver of frequency we call the world is a lie. And much of it has been systematically hidden from us. Systematically, we've been lied to keep us in ignorance. And people talk about the great diseases of humanity and this and that, the other biggest disease of humanity, ignorance. And alongside of that is the arrogance of ignorance. Not just being ignorant of things because you've just taken what you've been told and believed it and not researched it for yourself, but the arrogance that because it's different to what you've been told, that you can dismiss it without a second thought. It's like Einstein talked about. The stupidity and arrogance of dismissing things you've not researched, dismissing things you know nothing about. And so we are in a situation with Tullio, for instance, classic example of what I'm talking about, this arrogance of ignorance, whereby because it's different, never mind, this is the question. They never say, well, does it work? Let's have some clinical trials, see if it works. No, that's not where they're coming from. It's by reflex action. Sodium bicarbonate, that's in baking powder, and it cure cancer, that's ridiculous. End of story. No more research, no more questioning. The arrogance of ignorance. And that is, along with ignorance itself, is the reason we're in this mess.
David, we've just gone live. We were recording most of the earlier parts of the programme because we had technical difficulties, as you're aware of. People are hanging on, waiting. So we're going to leave it there for the time being. We got Cynthia McKinney waiting in America and other guests. Always a pleasure. It really is. Can't wait for the show in Wembley. People should get on to davidicke.com to find out about tickets for the October the 25th appearance of David at Wembley. And A Perception Deception is selling like hotcakes, as the old cliche used to go. It's a terrific read. Huge tome of information about the subjects David has been talking about tonight and much more besides as well. Always a pleasure, David, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Cheers, Rich. See you, mate.
David Icke on the line to us there from his home in the Isle of Wight.